Good morning, all of you. Hope all of you are fine. Today we will start our third chapter, that is metals and non-metals. Earlier we discussed about chemical reaction and acid, base and salts. Now in this chapter we will discuss about physical properties of metal as well as chemical properties of metal. As we all know that up to class 9th we discuss about metal and non-metal and their physical property. Now in this chapter we will see some other important point which is related with metals and non-metals, and along with that we will also discuss how to extract metal from their combined state. So let's just see what are the contents we are going to discuss through this video lecture. Let's just start. So the first topic is introduction. We will do the introduction of metals and non-metals. After that we will discuss physical properties of metals and non-metals. Third point, we will discuss chemical properties of metal and non-metal, and related with the chemical properties only, we will also discuss ionic and covalent compounds and its property. What are the different properties of covalent compound that we will discuss. Third and the most important part of this chapter is extraction of metal. Generally, metals are highly reactive in nature. Okay, and they always present in a combined form. So in order to get back into original pure metal form, we will do the extraction process, which is known as metallurgical operation. Last, we will discuss corrosion and alloying. What is corrosion and alloying? As we already know that topic, then also we will do the quick revision of that particular topic. And at last we will discuss summary of the chapter with the help of flow chart. Means whatever the thing we discuss, that we will see in the summary. And at the last of the chapter we will discuss some important NCERT questions. Let me tell you, for board exam point of view, this chapter is most important. Every year from this chapter you are going to get at least 6 marks question. 3 marks question related with the chemical properties of metal, as well as 3 marks or 5 marks related with the extraction of metals. In that you are going to ask, or different combined state of metals are given, and you have to write down their extraction process. So let's just start with introduction part of the metal. As we all know that in class 9 we discuss about metal, so we also learnt about the classification of matter on the basis of chemical properties. So on the basis of chemical properties, metal is divided into 2 parts, that is pure substance and mixture. After that, pure substance is divided into elements and compound, and mixture is divided into homogeneous mixture and heterogeneous mixture. Now again, element is divided into metal, non-metal and metalloid. So in this chapter we will do the detailed study of metal, non-metal and some uses of metalloid also. See, up to class 9th you only studied physical properties of metal and non-metal. So in class 10th you will discuss physical properties also. Along with that you will see the chemical properties of metal also and their extraction process. In short form, if we say that this chapter is basically divided into 2 parts. First part we will discuss about chemical properties of metals and non-metal, and in the second part we will learn about the metallurgical operations involved in the extraction of any metal. So let's just start our topic with the physical properties of metal. As we already know that metals are solid in nature except then mercury. All the metals are solid in nature except then mercury. Metals are hard in nature. That also we know that, except the lithium, potassium and sodium. They are so soft that we are able to cut through with our knife. Metals are metallic luster, means they have shiny appearance. Metals are ductile in nature, means can be drawn into a wire. Metals have high melting point except then gallium and cesium. Gallium and cesium are having very low melting point. Even if we take on our palm, they start melting. Metals have high boiling point. Why metals are having high boiling point? Because mostly metal form ionic compound, and ionic compounds are bonded together with electrostatic force of attraction. Metals are good conductor of heat because they are formed with the help of ions only. That's why they are good conductor of heat. See, all the metals are good conductor of heat, especially silver and copper, but lead and mercury is considered to be a poor conductor of electricity. Metals are good conductor of electricity, means best conductor is silver and copper, as we already discussed. Metal are sonorous in nature, means when we used to beat, it is able to produce sound. Now let's just see physical properties of non-metal. In physical properties of non-metal, all the things are just reverse as the metal. Whatever the properties we discuss for metals, all are just get reversed in case of non-metal. So let's just see. Physical properties of non-metals. As we already know that non-metals may be exist in all three states of matter, that is solid, liquids and gases. Among all 22 non-metals, some are present in solid state like carbon, sulfur, phosphorus and etc. Only one non-metal which exists in liquid state is bromine, and rest of the other is present in gaseous form like oxygen, hydrogen and nitrogen, etc. Now that also we know that non-metals are soft in nature except then diamond, which is hardest natural substance. Basically diamond is allotrope of carbon. Now related with that, one topic is there, allotropy. Now what is allotropy? Whenever any element exists in more than one form, then this phenomena is known as allotropy, and the existence form are known as allotropes. So diamond and graphite are the allotrope of carbon. So on that basis, most of the non-metals are soft in nature except then diamond, which is also known as hardest natural substance. Non-metals do not have luster, means they are not having shiny appearance. Non-metals are not malleable, means we are not able to convert them into form of thin sheet. Non-metals are not ductile, means we are not able to drawn into a wire. Non-metals which are solid and liquid have low melting point. Why it is so? Because non-metal mostly formed covalent compound, and covalent compounds are attached with each other through a van der Waals force of attraction, which require a very minimum amount of energy to get break. Next point, non-metals are bad conductor of heat, means they are not able to conduct heat properly. That's why they are known as bad conductor of heat. Non-metals are bad conductor of electricity except then graphite, because when you actually see the structure of graphite, there is a free electron available. Due to the availability of one free electron, graphite is able to hold the electricity, and rest of the other non-metals are present, or we can say that they are bad conductor of electricity, because mostly they are present in molecular form or molecule form. They are not present in ionic form. They always form covalent compound, which is formed by the sharing of electrons. Non-metals are non-sonorous, means they are not able to produce sound. When we use to beat, non-metal will not produce any kind of sound. That's why they are non-sonorous in nature. Now let's just start the chemical properties of metals. What are the chemical properties? Let's just see. Many reactions are there. Generally metals are very reactive in nature, so it just react with whatever the atmospheric gases present in our environment as well as the individual element. So let's just start with the first reaction, that is reaction with oxygen. Whenever any metal react with oxygen, it always form metallic oxide. This is the first chemical reaction of any metal. Whenever any metal react with oxygen, it form metallic oxide. Here you can see that when copper react with oxygen, it gives cuprous oxide. Similarly, when aluminium react with oxygen, it will gives us aluminium oxide. Now some other reactions are given, like when sodium react with oxygen, it will give you disodium oxide. Similarly, when disodium oxide mixed with water, it will give you base. That is the main reason why all the metallic oxides are considered to a basic in nature, means they are also called as basic oxide, because when they get mixed with water, they produce base. That's why all the metallic oxides are known as basic oxide. Here when potassium react with oxygen, potassium oxide is formed. Again potassium oxide mixed along with water and give you potassium hydroxide. Now there are some amphoteric oxides are also there. Amphoteric oxides are those oxides which change their behavior according to the other reacting substance. Means if the other reacting substance is basic in nature, then immediately the metallic oxide start behaving like a base, and if the other reacting substance is acidic in nature, then it behave like a base, and if it is basic in nature, then it will behave like acid. So let's just see. Here aluminum oxide react with acid and it will give you aluminum trichloride along with water molecule. So here hydrochloric is acidic in nature, so aluminum oxide behave like basic oxide. Now just in case in the second reaction you will observe that aluminum oxide react with base and give sodium aluminate along with water molecule. Here NaOH is base, so aluminum oxide behave like acid. So these kinds of oxides are known as amphoteric oxide, which change their behavior according to the other reacting substance. If the other reactive substance is acid, that immediately metallic oxide behave like base, and if other reacting substance is base, then the reacting metallic oxide behave like a acid, and after that in order to provide the salt. So these kinds of oxides are known as amphoteric oxides. Now let's just see some other chemical reaction of metals. How some other metal react with oxygen, let's just see. Metal like potassium and sodium react vigorously with oxygen and immediately catch fire when kept in open. Hence, they are stored in kerosene to prevent burning. See, whenever potassium or sodium react with oxygen, immediately it catch fire. Why? Because immediately they form di-potassium oxide or di-sodium oxide. So in order to prevent this, we used to keep sodium and potassium under kerosene oil. And second thing is that they are highly reactive in nature and soft in nature. Second point is, if magnesium is heated, it burns with bright flame. Whenever magnesium react with oxygen, it gives us bright flame along with the formation of magnesium oxide. If iron is heated, it glow brightly. One magnificent type of glow get produced whenever iron get heated in presence of oxygen. Similarly, if copper is heated, it does not burn but form a black coating of copper oxide. Keep that thing in your mind. Whenever copper is heated, it will not produce any kind of bright glow. It form a black color covering or a coating of a copper oxide. Silver and gold does not react with oxygen even at high temperature. Why is it so? Because when you actually go through with reactivity series, you will come to know that silver and gold kept below the hydrogen and they are least reactive in nature. That's why they not get affected by oxygen. Last point is, some metals like magnesium, aluminium, zinc, lead, etc. form oxide layer over it, which prevent further oxidation, and they are called self-protecting metals. See, this point is very important. This point is basically used in the prevention of corrosion also. Immediately, metal like magnesium, aluminium, zinc, lead, they form a protective layering of their oxide which prevent from the corrosion to that particular metal. Okay, now second thing is that it is also used in a galvanization process like zinc oxide. A layer of zinc oxide is get coated over any other metal to prevent that metal from corrosion. So these are the behavior of some other metal when they react with oxygen. Now let's just see some other examples or some other reactions of metal with some other elements or gases or the molecules. See, reaction with water. As we all know that all the metals are basic in nature, means whenever they get combined with water, they gives us base. First thing, they get combined with oxygen and form a oxide layer, and that oxide get mixed with water and gives us base. So that's why metal is known as basic oxide also. So let's just see. When sodium react with water, it gives us sodium hydroxide along with hydrogen gas. Because of the formation of sodium hydroxide, it is also known as basic oxide. Similarly, potassium also, when react with water, it gives us potassium hydroxide and hydrogen gas. Calcium react with water, it gives us calcium hydroxide and hydrogen gas. Aluminium react with water molecule and gives us aluminium oxide and hydrogen gas. See, here the formation of aluminium oxide is there, which is amphoteric in nature, means according to the situation, aluminium oxide either behave like acid or behave like base. When it get combined with acid, it behave like base, and when it get combined with base, it behave like acid. Similarly, iron also, when it get combined with water, it also gives us ferric oxide. When ferric oxide contains some amount of water, then it is known as rust also. Iron only react with oxygen in presence of moisture only. In normal form, iron doesn't react with oxygen. Now let's just see what are the changes takes place when metals react with water and what kind of things happen. So whenever sodium and potassium react violently with cold water to form sodium hydroxide and hydrogen gas and catch fire. See, this is very important point. Whenever sodium and potassium react with water, it react violently with cold water. Many time in board examination also question asked like this, which element react vigorously with cold water? So your answer should be sodium and potassium react with cold water. Calcium react with less violently with water to form calcium hydroxide and to form water and does not catch fire. Means whenever calcium react with water, it gives us base along with hydrogen gas and it will not catch fire. Magnesium only react with hot water. Keep that thing in your mind. Sodium and potassium only react with cold water. Magnesium react with hot water in order to give magnesium hydroxide and hydrogen gas. Metal like aluminium, iron, zinc react only with steam to form metal oxide and hydrogen gas. See, steam means water vapor. Sodium and potassium react with cold water. Your calcium react with normal water, and when it form a compound like calcium hydroxide, it start floating over the surface of water because it become lighter in weight. Magnesium react with hot water in order to give magnesium hydroxide along with hydrogen gas. Similarly, metals like aluminium, iron and zinc react with steam to form metal oxide along with hydrogen gas. See, so these points are very important like cold water, hot water or steam. Similarly, lead, copper, silver, gold do not react with water because they are least reactive in nature and kept below with the hydrogen in reactivity series. In simple language, if we say that different type of metals are there which react with different categories of water. So question are going to ask to you that which element react with cold water, which element react with hot water, which element react with steam. So your answer should be sodium and potassium react with cold water, calcium react with normal water, magnesium always react with hot water, aluminium, iron, zinc react with steam or water vapor, and metal like lead, copper, silver and gold do not react with water. So might be you are able to get in 3 marks question from this topic. Now let's just see some other reaction of metals. Reaction with acid. That also we know that, and we studied also that whenever any metal react with any acid, it always gives us salt along with hydrogen gas. That we already know it. So let's just see and understand with some example. Like whenever magnesium react with hydrochloric acid, it gives us magnesium chloride along with hydrogen gas. When aluminium react with hydrochloric acid, it gives us aluminium trichloride along with hydrogen gas. So in simple language, we can say that whenever any metal react with any acid, it always gives us salt along with hydrogen gas. See, one exception is also there in case of nitric acid, that we will see. See, another example, when zinc react with hydrochloric acid, it gives us zinc chloride and hydrogen gas. When iron react with hydrochloric acid, it gives us ferrous chloride and hydrogen gas. See, The reactivity varies from metal to metal. That we already discussed. The reactivity of any metal is vary from metal to metal depending upon their place in reactivity series. For example, the above metal decreasing order of the reactivity means they are the arranged in the decreasing order of the reactivity. That magnesium is highly reactive, then after that aluminum is reactive, then zinc is reactive, and least reactive is iron. They are arranged in decreasing order means magnesium is more reactive than aluminum, aluminum is more reactive than zinc, and zinc is more reactive than iron. Copper and silver and gold do not react with diluted form of acid. It always react with concentrated form of acid. See, in case of gold and silver, they mostly not undergo any type of reaction with any acid in their diluted form as well as their concentrated form because they are least reactive. But under extreme condition, they also might be undergo some kind of changes. Hydrogen gas is not evolved when metal react with nitric acid, concentrated form of nitric acid, generally except then manganese and magnesium. Manganese means Mn and Mg. Except then these two metal, whenever other metal react with concentrated form of nitric acid, it will never produce hydrogen gas. Instead of producing hydrogen gas, it start producing nitrous gas. Only manganese and magnesium are the two metal which react with concentrated form of nitric acid and provides us hydrogen gas along with the formation of salt. And rest of the other element only react with the diluted form of nitric acid. And when it react with diluted form of nitric acid, it gives us nitrogen dioxide gas. Let's just see. Hydrogen gas is not evolved when metal react with nitric acid because it is a strong oxidizing agent and it oxidizes the hydrogen to produce water and itself reduce to oxidize to nitrogen. So you will understand from this reaction when copper react with diluted, here it is a diluted form or we can say that concentrated form. When copper react with, mostly metal react with the concentrated form and it produce nitrogen dioxide gas. Whenever other except then manganese and magnesium react with concentrated form of metal, it will produce always a nitrogen gas. But if manganese and magnesium react, instead of producing nitrogen dioxide, it generally produce hydrogen gas. So whenever copper react with nitric acid, it will give us copper nitrate along with water molecule and nitrogen dioxide gas. Now let's just see some other example by which we can understand reaction or chemical properties of metal more clearly. Reaction of metal with salt solution, or simply we can say that most of the metals show the displacement reaction. As we already discussed in first chapter, there are some group of metal which arranged in a series on the basis of their reactivity. So whenever these metal dipped into another salt solution of other metal, they used to displace those metal which are least reactive in nature. So now let's just see what they are and try to understand this concept more clearly. See, basically if we say that a more reactive metal displaces a less reactive metal from its salt solution, that we already discussed in first chapter. So let's just understand with some example. Like magnesium metal react with copper sulfate solution and immediately it will form magnesium sulfate along with copper metal. You will understand by this figure. You just take two test tube. In that test tube, in one test tube A, just take a solution of copper sulfate and dip some or take some amount of magnesium powder. Immediately what you will see after the reaction, the color of the solution become colorless. This shows that displacement reaction takes place and immediately magnesium took the place of copper and formed magnesium sulfate solution, and copper pieces are get collected on the bottom of the second beaker, which is beaker B. So by this we can clearly understood that whenever magnesium or whenever highly reactive metal react with least reactive metal, it just displaces from its salt solution. Now second example is that when zinc react with copper sulfate solution, it will form zinc sulfate and copper metal. Zinc is also more reactive than copper. So zinc also displaces copper from its salt solution, that is copper sulfate. You will understand by doing a small experiment. Take two beaker only, take a copper sulfate solution in one beaker and dip magnesium zinc in it. After that what you will see that the color of the solution get changed. This shows that the formation of zinc sulfate. Last reaction is when iron react with copper sulfate solution, you will get ferrous sulfate and copper. This is a most important reaction in many examination. You will get this either in home examination or board examination. Iron is also more reactive than copper. So whenever iron metal react with copper sulfate solution, immediately iron displaces copper and form ferrous sulfate and copper metal. In second figure you will understand, if you dip a iron nail in copper sulfate solution, immediately the color of copper sulfate turn into dirty green or light green, which indicate the formation of ferrous sulfate solution. Now let's just see a reactivity series by which we can clearly understand that what are the metals and who are the metals which are most reactive than the other metals. By seeing in a reactivity series, they are arranged in the decreasing order of their reactivity. When elements, or we can say that when metals are arranged in the decreasing order of their reactivity series, then it is called as a reactivity series of metal. So here it is the reactivity series of metal. Like potassium is highly reactive, then sodium, then calcium, then magnesium, then aluminum, then zinc, then iron, then lead, and in mid of the series hydrogen is kept, which come in a category of both metal and non-metal. So hydrogen is taken as a standard element, and the reactivity of metal compared with the hydrogen. So those elements which are kept above the hydrogen, they are considered to be highly reactive metals, and those elements which are kept below the hydrogen, they are considered to least reactive metal. And condition is that the highly reactive metals are capable enough to displace the least reactive metals from their salt solution. So whatever the highly reactive metals are there, they are capable enough to displace the least reactive metal. This is the condition and this is the property of reactivity series. On the basis of their chemical changes, reactivity series are formed, and they are arranged like this, that highly reactive metal shows the displacement reaction with the help of least reactive metals. Now let's just see some other reaction of metal with non-metal, means how metal react with non-metal and which kind of compound is get formed. Let's just see. Whenever any metal react with non-metal, it always form ionic compound. Metals are electropositive in nature, that we already know that, and similarly non-metals are electronegative in nature. Electropositive means they have tendency to lose electron, and electronegative means they have tendency to gain electron. So whenever any metal and non-metal react, they always form a ionic compound. Let's just understand from here. Just take an example of sodium and magnesium. As we already know that sodium and magnesium are metal. So here atomic number of sodium is written, that is 11, and electronic configuration of sodium is written, that is 2, 8 and 1. So if sodium will lose their one electron, it get a stable configuration like inert gases. Similarly, atomic number of magnesium is 12 and electronic configuration is 282. If magnesium will lose its 2 electron, it get a stable configuration like inert gas like neon. So what metal used to do, they contain least number of electron in their outermost cell, so they used to lose their electron to get stability. So generally metals are electropositive in nature. Similarly, non-metal have tendency to gain electron, and that's why they are called electronegative elements. Just understand with the example of chlorine and oxygen. The atomic number of chlorine is 17 and electronic configuration of chlorine is 2, 8 and 7. So one condition is there, and that is the condition of octet rule. Related with the octet rule, this condition is there that losing and gaining of electron is possible up to 3 electron. More than 3 electron of losing and gaining is not possible by any element, because that much amount of energy is not present in any element. Means they can only lose maximum 3 electron and minimum 1 electron. Similarly, they can only gain maximum 3 electron and minimum 1 electron, not more than this. So here just see, in case of chlorine, electronic configuration is written 2, 8 and 7. In the outermost cell, 7 electron is present. So losing of 7 electron is not possible. Then what chlorine will do? Chlorine will gain 1 electron and get a stable configuration like inert gases. Similarly, in case of oxygen, atomic number of oxygen is 8 and electronic configuration is 2 and 6. So in the outermost cell of oxygen, 6 electron is present. So losing of 6 electron is not possible. Then what oxygen will do? Oxygen will gain 2 electron and get a stable configuration like neon. So this is how basically metals and non-metals do. Metals are electropositive elements and non-metals are electronegative elements, and whenever they get combined, they always form a ionic compound. Now let's just understand what is ionic compound. Ionic compounds are compound made up of ions. Means ionic compounds are those compound which is made up of ions. These ions are atoms that gain or lose electron, giving them a net positive or negative charge. Metal tend to lose electron, so they become cation and have net positive charge. Similarly, non-metal tend to gain electron, forming anion that have a net negative charge. Understand like this that we already discussed that metals are electropositive in nature, means they have tendency to lose electron, and non-metals are electronegative in nature, so they have tendency to gain electron. So whenever metal loses its electron, it develops a positive charge and known as cations, and whenever non-metal gain electron, it form anion and develop a negative charge. Like in case of metal, like after losing electrons, sodium metal become Na plus. Similarly, after gaining electron, chlorine becomes Cl minus, which is known as chloride ion. So that's how any ionic compound are get formed. Let's just understand this concept with example. Here one example is given, that is formation of sodium chloride. That we already know that sodium is a metal which is electropositive in nature, means having tendency to lose electron, and chlorine is a non-metal which is electronegative in nature and tendency to gain electron, because in the outermost cell of chlorine atom 7 electron is present, and that we already know that losing and gaining up to 3 electron is possible, and more than that is not possible by any atom, because that much amount of energy is not present in any atom to lose more than 3 electron or to gain more than 3 electron. So now let's just see how actually the formation of sodium chloride work. Here sodium metal is written and chlorine non-metal is written. As we already know that atomic number of sodium is 11 and electronic configuration is 2, 8 and 1. In outermost cell of sodium 1 electron is present, and in case of chlorine atomic number of chlorine is 17 and electronic configuration is 2, 8 and 7. Now how actually it work? What happened? If sodium anyhow loses its 1 electron, so it will get a configuration like 2 and 8, which is a inert gas configuration similar to neon gas. Similarly, if chlorine will get 1 electron, then it get stable configuration like argon. So what actually happen? That sodium will lose its 1 electron, and that loosed electron is acquired by chlorine, and because of that what will happen? Sodium ion and chloride ion get formed. We used to represent like this after the losing of electron and gaining of electron. At the time of the representation of electron, we only show the number of electron which is present in the outermost cell of any atom. Means at the time of formation of sodium chloride, we will separately show the total number of electron present in each atom of element in their outermost cell. So in the outermost cell of sodium only 1 electron is given, which given to chlorine atom, and because of that positive charge get formed on sodium metal, and that loosed electron gained by chlorine atom, and it become chloride ion along with the minus sign, because sodium loses 1 electron, that's why 1 positive charge develop, and chlorine gain 1 electron, that's why 1 negative charge develop. After that this ionic formation takes place and it just get combined and gives us sodium chloride. When we dissolve this sodium chloride in water, what will happen? We will again able to get sodium ion and chloride ion in the aqueous solution. That's why we are able to prove that sodium chloride is a ionic compound. Now let's just see. The atomic number of sodium is 11. Its electronic configuration is 2, 8 and 1. It has 1 valence electron. It loses 1 electron to form sodium ion, that we discussed. The atomic number of chlorine is 17. Its atomic configuration is 2, 8 and 7. It has 7 valence electron and it gain 1 electron to form chloride ion. Then the attraction between the sodium ion and chloride ion takes place, and as a result formation of sodium chloride will take place. That we already know that always positive attract negative, and because of the combination of positive and negative, one neutral salt is formed, that is sodium chloride. Now let's just understand with one more example, that is magnesium chloride. Here we will see formation of magnesium chloride. That we know that magnesium is having atomic number 12 and electronic configuration. When we used to write, it comes 2, 8 and 2, means in outermost cell of magnesium 2 electron is present. So if magnesium lose its 2 electron, it get a stable configuration like neon, which is a inert gas. Similarly, chlorine, atomic number of chlorine is 17 and electronic configuration is 2, 8 and 7. If chlorine gain 1 electron, then what will happen? It will become stable configuration. It form a stable configuration like argon gas. Now what actually happened here, in order to show the formation of magnesium chloride, which is MgCl2, we will take 2 atom of chlorine. So this is how it actually works. We will take single atom of magnesium and 2 atom of chlorine, and we represent the outermost electron present in their balance cell of each atom. In case of magnesium, 2 electron is present in the outermost cell, and in case of both the atoms of chlorine, 7 electrons are present in each atom of chlorine. Now how we will use to show? We will show the transferring of electron from magnesium to one chlorine atom and from another electron transferring to another chlorine atom. See, with the generally organic compound is formed by the transferring of electron, and we will show that transferring through a curved arrow. The head part of the arrow means this part. This part shows the movement and the traveling of electron, means from which part to which part electron is moving, that showed by the arrow head. Now let's just see how it forms. After the losing of electron, what will happen? Magnesium loses 2 electrons, so it will develop 2 positive charge, and each chlorine atom gain 1 electron, so it will develop -1 and -1 electron, or it will develop 1 minus charge and 1 minus charge, and again the attraction takes place between positive and negative, and as a result one neutral salt formed, that is magnesium chloride. This is how we used to represent ionic compound, or we used to show the formation of ionic compound. Now let's just see what actually ionic compound and its properties. Ionic compounds are compound which is formed by the transfer of electron from metal to a non-metal, that we already know that. It is also known as electrovalent compound. Why it is called as electrovalent compound? Because in this compound we used to see the transferring of electron of outermost cell of metal to the outermost cell of non-metal. Now let's just see the properties of ionic compound. Here, first property, they are formed by the transfer of electron and made up of ion, that we already understood. They are crystalline solid because they are formed by the combination of ions. That's why they are solid in nature. They have high melting point and boiling point. Why? Because they are bonded together with a very strong force of attraction, which is known as electrostatic force of attraction. They are soluble in water but insoluble in organic solvent like petrol and kerosene, because they are covalently bonded and they not get ionized. Now the last point is they conduct electricity in the molten or in solution. Why? Because when we used to dissolve ionic compound in water, immediately they just get dissociated in form of ions, and because of that they are able to conduct the electricity. That That's it for now. Now, in next video lecture, we will discuss about chemical properties of nonmetal as well as covalent compound and its property along with the uses of metalloid. Thank you.